In this podcast, we're going to talk about the secret to feeling seen and held by men, specifically talking about the strong woman who feels alone. When we talk about this archetype of woman, the strong woman who feels alone. So I want to paint the picture of this person, although maybe you've already self-identified as her. I would also identify as her. I'm definitely her. I'm friends with her. I've had her as a client and a coworker. So you know this archetype of the strong, independent woman, right? We hear that as a buzzword term phrase all the time. It's someone who really handles themselves, handles most things on their own, can operate independently with confidence, probably lives alone, or at least takes the more role of responsibility if they're living with a friend, for example. She might be in a leadership role in her career. She might be an entrepreneur or a creative freelancer or something in that realm. If you have taken my free quiz, which is which anxious attachment archetype are you, then I would say that the highly independent woman is most associated with the calm and collected overthinker. If you haven't taken that quiz, basically you're going to answer 12 questions about your experience with yourself and dating and anxious attachment. And after you answer those 12 questions, you're going to get an archetypal result. So there's 4 different results. And that result will also give you some tools to what it looks like for you to heal this unique anxious attachment style. Because depending on your nervous system, which will also be answered through some of the questions, I can understand what your healing journey tends to look like. So the quiz result names are the calm and collected overthinker, the distant dreamer, the sensitive soul, and the affection enthusiast. And if you've taken the quiz, again, you'll understand. If not, it doesn't matter. But the independent woman tends to be either a calm and collected overthinker or maybe the distant dreamer. I could see it as second most likely. So for the rest of this episode, we're going to talk about this archetype of woman and how, as a strong independent woman, you can open up to receiving, to love and support. Because I imagine it's something you deeply crave and yet have not very often been in the position where you are the one being held and seen, because it is your natural orientation to hold direction and leadership and responsibility. So as with a lot of my episodes, I like to break down what happened in the past in order to create this reality we're living in now, and what can we do in order to shift into something else if that is what we desire. So why does the strong independent woman end up feeling unseen or unsupported in relationships? Chances are she is using self-sufficiency as a shield. Okay, so we're gonna get into the truth bombs here pretty quickly. If you have this personality, then your self-sufficiency, your ability to handle, keeps you safe, right? This was probably learned as a survival mechanism. Maybe you're also the oldest daughter, and it can start to unintentionally signal to others that you don't actually need help or emotional support. You probably not only know how to handle things because you've had to in the past, but you also do it with grace, seemingly with ease, seemingly unbothered. You probably also have this mask as part of your shield of, yes, I've got it, it's fine, or yes, I would actually prefer to do it that way. Women like this also tend to get less support because our cultural narrative is that being the strong, independent woman is celebrated. You are celebrated for working hard, celebrated for success, celebrated for making big career moves or big moves in your education. And the vulnerability, the other side of it, the softness, the openness, the receiving, is generally less celebrated in our culture in terms of what success actually looks like. Additionally, because the strong woman values this part of herself, she may struggle to express any emotional needs due to a fear of being perceived as weak. So if I have spent a lot of my energy creating an identity that is, I can handle it and I'm strong and I've got me, then there's probably part of me that is rejecting, maybe on an unconscious or conscious level, the idea of being weak, the idea of being a burden to someone else, the idea of taking someone else's time. So if those things feel like a problem to me, then of course I'm not going to hold myself in a a way that suggests that I need help or support, even when I do have needs that I would like support on. And finally, there tends to be an imbalance in giving and receiving for this type of woman. If you are this woman, you likely have a tendency to take care of others, which creates a dynamic where your own emotional well-being gets overlooked. And I find that with this type of woman, this shows up in subtle ways. So it's not like the doting, stressed mother who's in a fuss and is like fussing around, you know? It's more like you're the mom friend at the bar, right? You still go out, you still look hot, you're still having fun, but you're the one that has part of your awareness on everyone else and making sure that everyone's okay. You probably organized the Uber from the pre-party to the party or to the bar. So your mind is distracted because you're one step ahead. And by being the person whose mind automatically goes one step ahead, you're automatically in giving mode, right? You're automatically in caretaking mode. And because it is a default for you, other people would have to likely stretch their behavior and change their automatic behavior in order for you to receive. So it's just another part of the energetic dynamic of what you carry that lends to feeling unseen or unsupported in relationships. And of course, we're going to talk about solutions for this. So the second question I wanted to answer for us is, how can these past experiences of self-reliance, why do they create barriers to intimacy? And then again, how can we overcome them? So when we think about the hyper-independence part of this, there was a past reliance on yourself for a long time, for whatever reason, and it's been your default state, which can make it really difficult to trust others to meet your emotional needs or your practical needs. And when we feel like we can't trust others, then we likely won't put anything on them because we assume they're going to get it wrong or do it wrong anyway. So how can we overcome this? Well, practically, it would be by delegating tasks, literally, or opening up a little bit about topics that feel less vulnerable to you, but allow you to just literally open to someone to start to build that trust gradually. It's really important when we talk about trusting people that you find your own edge, right? I don't know what is edgy for you in terms of how much you can give to someone else in terms of delegating something or trust or asking them to handle something. So one part of that is going to feel safe for you and one part's going to feel uncomfortable. And we want to meet the edge of what would I normally not do, but that I know is going to open me up to a little bit more intimacy and a little bit more availability for closeness, okay? And I want to make sure that this is clear, because within the subject line, that's for emails, within the podcast title, I have love for the strong woman who feels alone. So I want to make sure that alone part really is woven in here. And the reason that we tend to feel alone is because of this shield that we have, because we are used to literally handling things alone. And when we feel alone, we feel unseen. So in order to feel the opposite of alone, which is in connection and in closeness, in vulnerability, it requires us to open and move from hyper independence into something that looks more like interdependence, where we get to rely on other people in these small ways. And that's where you need to meet your edge. So second thing that I want to mention here in terms of what has happened in the past that's creating a barrier to intimacy now is a fear of rejection. So self-reliance usually stems from previous experiences where our emotional or literal needs were dismissed or not met, right? If our emotional needs aren't being met by our caretakers, we're just going to stop asking for them. And that will translate for the rest of our life until we realize it's not working and that we want to be emotionally open and ask again. But this fear of rejection in the body can feel so tight and scary and dreadful that it holds us back from asking. So overcoming this means addressing those fears. It means practicing communicating openly and testing. It's okay to test the waters of this, testing safe emotional exchange in the present moment. A good example would be wanting something in a relationship, in dating, and actually asking for it. Something simple that might be the dinner place that you want to go to, or if he suggests a movie that you've either seen a million times or is just totally not your genre, can you face the fear of rejection and suggest something that you actually like. Again, you have to find your edge. You can't take my example and be like, oh, that's easy for me. I would do that all the time. So I guess if I do that now, then I'll get over my fear of rejection. No, because there's no fear associated with that. You have to find your own edge. And the third barrier to intimacy and closeness and feeling connected that we may have created with this personality is control as a comfort zone. Managing everything for you, I would bet good money, feels safer than risking disappointment from, like, as in you getting disappointed because someone else messed it up, or someone else getting disappointed because you let someone else handle it and therefore like a third party was disappointed, for example. So control is a huge one in this archetype, something that I actually have definitely one episode about and then multiple episodes and tools within school. I know looking at our control issues isn't the most sexy thing, but once you really see where the need for control drains so much of your energy and potentially keeps you really closed from other people, then it does feel worth it to look at that pattern within yourself. And just use the journal questions that I have in there, for example, which will allow you to uncover deeply how these things show up in your life. So when we're overcoming the comfort zone that is being the one in control, we have to just release control incrementally. So that might look like focusing on doing things a little bit more in collaboration, asking other people to help you problem solve rather than just being the one that is making the decisions or making things happen. I would suggest doing this first with things that you don't really care about but would normally take the lead on. So let's say you're going on a weekend away and it's not your highlight of the year. You know, you're excited to go with the girls, but it's not like you need everything to be perfect in order to have a good time. That would be a great time to just let other people start to handle some things. Where can you let someone else handle the transportation or the itinerary and save your leadership and control for the ones that really matter to you? So if hosting Friendsgiving is the thing where you're like, the turkey has to be this and it has to be this flavor of gravy and this specific pumpkin pie because I know it's the best, go all in. I'm sure your friends will love it. But find, again, your edge of where can I let go of control? Where is it just not your circus, not your problem to solve? Can that be where you practice leaning back and just being in an experience that someone else created instead of being the one that created the experience? So the next question we're going to answer is going to allow you to see where and how you can actually receive more often in your life. And the question is, how can women who are used to holding it all together learn to receive love and care? The first thing for this is going to be practicing vulnerability. With the examples that I gave before in terms of self-reliance and maybe lack of trust and control, letting go of those things is practicing vulnerability. So as with all these things, we're going to start small. Maybe that means sharing something personal or asking for a small favor, just to start to build trust in the act of receiving. And when you're doing this, the best thing you can do is slow down and make this a really conscious act. I consciously am choosing to ask for something here, so that you can consciously notice what happens on the other side. Because right now the story is, maybe I want to ask for this, but my fear of rejection stops me. So now I have no evidence of what actually happens on the other side. My mind has told me that it could be rejection, and because it could be rejection, that's too big of a risk. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to ask for this thing, I'm going to see what happens, and I'm going to notice that. And the more you do this, the more data points you're going to receive of people giving to you, of people being willing to show up for you, of people being excited to show up for you. Now, I will say something really hard that happens in this is that you may, at this point, have surrounded yourself with people who do not show up the way you do. This is what tends to happen when you carry this type of energy of I'll handle it. We tend to train the people around us that we don't need anything. So when we start to need something, sometimes people do pull back. Sometimes people do not show up because that's who they always were to begin with. It wasn't a problem before because you were the one in control. So that can be confronting, that can be really sad, it can be frustrating. But I just need you in that to take responsibility for the fact that this is the reality that you made it to so far, and we're changing it. And changing it sometimes comes with uncomfortability, and maybe not. Maybe not at all. As I was saying in the beginning, I have lots of friends who are this archetype. So even though I'm this archetype and have been this archetype, because they also are, of course, they actually will show up for me when I want them to. And having those types of girlfriends who are willing to show up has made my ability to be open and connect and playful and make adult friends so much easier. But of course, it started super slow. I didn't want to lean on people. I didn't want to open up to them. I didn't want to want something from them. But when I did and I was met with it, which is what will happen to you, then we start to gain the evidence. And when we have the evidence, then our body starts to trust it more and more, and it becomes less of a really edgy thing. Second tip for receiving love and care is to start acknowledging your own emotions and your own emotional needs. This would be exploring, what is your relationship to sadness? What is your relationship to anger? What is your relationship to joy? Again, all things that we do within the Becoming Secure community. It's literally under one of the teachings and the somatic practices. We get to know our relationship to our emotions that are in our body, and we start to create a more healthy relationship to our emotions. So acknowledging what that is for you and giving yourself permission to recognize that the potential deep exhaustion that might live in your body is going to help you validate that you want support, right? You can see where your body might physically want support. Giving yourself support, seeing yourself, is also going to be a huge hack to getting it from someone else. So if what you really want is a man to just see you and love you and hold you and be this strong pillar that you can just finally rest into or collapse against, the work is in giving that to yourself first. Two more things in terms of how can we start to receive love and care. First one being, we need to reframe what strength actually means. So we associate usually with this archetype strength with stoicism, with being unwavering, unbreaking, with pushing through, aka overriding our boundaries. And what we need to understand is that allowing others to support you is a form of strength. And this was one for me where I was just like, I just don't really see it. Maybe it's not weakness, but maybe it's not strength. I don't see that. I need a compelling argument in order to really believe that that's true. And maybe you've heard this quote that says something about, if you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, go together. And my mind would always be like, yeah, well, I want to go fast. Unapologetically, my mind was in that mode for a long time, and I just didn't really see the value in going further. Felt like fast was good enough. You know, this whole thing, I'm watching my ego mind fight against this idea. So I wanted to find a good metaphor that could help us understand and feel the necessity of support and how being supported is actually going to just make life actually feel better. So the metaphor that I landed on was a sailboat and the wind, okay? So you are the boat, or you're at least on the boat, and the sailboat represents you. It's crafted with care, and it's strong, and it's super capable, and that symbolizes your strength and your independence, right? You're in control of the direction of the sailboat because you're in control of the sails. However, we need wind. So wind is that unseen force that moves the sailboat forward, right? The boat itself is powerful, but it cannot move without the wind. And so the wind is symbolizing this support that you receive from others, your partner, your friends, mentors, your family, or even just the universe. How much are you not receiving support from the universe is something to explore too. Where is the universe supporting you right now? Where are you already supported? That remembering and seeing that I am supported, this is where I'm supported, is definitely another hack to basically filling your sails with wind and being like, oh my God, I'm not alone in this. I'm not actually alone in this world. Even though I'm doing the most, even though I'm exhausted, there is support here. So finding that evidence is so, so crucial in order to start feeling what you want to feel, which is being able to receive and being supported. And just to wrap up the sailboat metaphor, as you can imagine, you could paddle the sailboat with a paddle if you wanted to. to have a little bit more control, and you could run side to side with these big oars or paddles or whatever, but imagine how much energy that would take instead of just standing at is the helm the front of the boat? I don't actually know. Standing at the wheel of the boat and letting that wind carry you and just being the person who drives the ship. And the final thing here I'll say in this part, in how can we receive more, is leaning into the discomfort of receiving, allowing yourself to receive. If someone offers to do something for you, even if you don't need them to get the door or need them to help you carry that thing, can you just receive it? That's actually a perfect place to start practicing, is saying yes when someone offers you something small and just allowing yourself to receive it. It can feel uncomfortable. It's not the point that it's going to necessarily feel great and amazing in the beginning. It's a muscle that strengthens over time. So the next thing we're going to address is the practical ways to express this desire you have to be held. How does it actually sound? What does it actually look like? And in terms of communicating it, I think what can feel really good is using a self-empowered language. So framing your needs here as a desire for deeper connection rather than something that's lacking. Instead of saying, I need more quality time or I need more attention, try, I feel closer to you when you hold space for me. Or I feel so safe with you when we cuddle. It feels so good to lay in your arms, right? This is a bit more of an empowered language. And in terms of asking for what your needs are, you want to practice being really specific. So I'd love a hug right now, or can we talk about how I'm feeling? Again, finding what it is that you need through being connected to yourself and your body and the truth of what's going on, and then communicating that in a way that is a request or an empower language. Final part here is normalizing emotional support is going to be key in this for you, right? Reminding yourself that emotional interdependence, which means communicating emotions with other people, expressing emotions with someone else who is open and available for that, it's natural and healthy in relationships, and it's okay. It doesn't have to be dumping or venting, or it doesn't have to be a burden, right? Especially if you ask someone like, hey, do you have 15 minutes? I just want to share something, or I'm feeling really stressed. Is it okay if I share that with you? If it's okay if I talk about how I'm feeling with you? Chances are, by a close friend or partner, you are going to be met with yes. In turn, giving yourself a chance to be held. Finally, let's talk about what it looks like in partnership in terms of creating a relationship where you feel supported and cherished right from the beginning. That's going to be the first thing, is setting the tone early. In new relationships, communicating what your values are around support and emotional connection is so important. I know that it's so easy to go in our default of, I can handle it and I will also take care of you and I'm going to remember everything you like and I'm going to think of these thoughtful gifts for you and I'm going to be available for you. But what happens is that can set us up for this same perpetuating problem immediately, basically, right? We're immediately training the person that I don't need anything, and then it can end up creating resentment in you when they don't become that person that you want them to, and they can also feel really caught off guard if all of a sudden there's a huge problem when we have actually trained them that this is what you need, okay? So first thing is setting the tone early. Also celebrating the people that you're dating when they support you. So acknowledging it, telling them what you like, telling them how you feel supported. Just doing that is, what's the word? It's like positive reinforcement, right? It's actually a pretty simple thing within human behavior. When we celebrate someone for something or compliment, they're probably going to do it again, specifically with us, okay? So that's going to be one that hopefully feels fun and nice and generous and also allows you to maybe meet an edge of what it is to give someone compliments and support in that way. We also want to maintain our boundaries from the beginning in a relationship, avoid falling into this caretaking role, and just staying clear with what your energy is, taking things nice and slow, allowing yourself to feel you as you go through the relationship, and encouraging that equal emotional investment, noticing where from potentially the beginning of a relationship, the other person might not have the capacity that you desire, and taking that very seriously, right? In the beginning of a relationship, It's so fun to get swept up in the hormones and the oxytocin and the love and the fantasy and the idea of it all. We want to keep ourselves really grounded. Is this person someone who has the capacity for this? And am I showing up in a way that is showing them what I want in relationship long term, which you can do with all of the ways that we have talked about a couple minutes ago. Ultimately, what's probably going to feel really good is you seeking partners who do demonstrate emotional intelligence and reliability, a really strong ability to also take care of themselves, and a genuine desire to create a balance in your dynamic, right? You're not trying to seek someone who needs you to be their mom, okay? That's not going to feel good for you. You probably want a man who is pretty strong in his own direction and leadership. That's what is going to make you feel more safe. So just something to keep an eye on in terms of you creating the partnership of your dreams. And I'll wrap it up by talking about the other side of the journey. So what does it look like when the strong, independent woman does drop back into herself and her needs and her emotions and allows herself to be seen and held? So this version of you that receives support is going to probably feel way more aligned, probably going to be generally more effective because your energy is taken care of in such a different way by yourself and also by a partner. You will feel in your power because you have space to not be in your power. You have the space to choose. You have the ability to slow down when you need to and push when you want to, instead of just for the sake of pushing or for the sake of being in control or for the sake of being the person that handles it. You can feel energetically how that just sounds differently in my voice. And when you don't have to prove that you are the person that can handle it, you get to just be the maybe more soft, more open version of yourself that is open to connection. And you're still going to be the wise and resilient queen who takes control when needed, but you're no longer struggling in that alone, struggling behind that shield of self-sufficiency. And when you open yourself up to that, you get to be emotionally available and the soft, cutesy version of you that I know is in there, while also being grounded in your power, because you trust your spine enough, you trust yourself enough that when you need that mode, you can turn it on. But it doesn't have to be your default mode, because that default mode is closed and it's rigid in the body and it doesn't allow us to be held or to be open, right? So your new orientation within your body is more of a strong spine, soft heart, which is something that we hear in yoga a lot. And with that, you get to feel relationally whole. You're not burdened by the weight of doing everything alone and doing everything for other people, but you're empowered by the self-trust and the self-knowing that you have the ability to co-create with other people, co-create with a romantic partner, co-create with life. So I hope this has painted the picture of shifting from the strong, independent woman to the strong and soft, open to receive, loving and grounded woman. Again, not because there's a problem with any of it, but because of how you want to feel in your body and because of your craving to feel deeply seen and deeply held by life and by a man, or whatever that is for you. I totally see you in this. I have so been on this journey. This discussion also opens up a lot of opportunity to talk about feminine and masculine energy. I think I have one other episode on that, but I have so much in school about what it looks like to be in your feminine energy, some somatic practices for dropping into your feminine energy, how to balance your feminine and masculine energy, which is, like I said, what we are talking about with this archetype. The strong, independent woman tends to be in her masculine energy, which is fine. We need it. And the fact that you can be in it with confidence is great. It's actually an amazing skill set. But when we're trying to cultivate the other side, we definitely need some tools to do so. And it's not just going to happen by thinking about it. So I hope that this episode was supportive. I'd love to hear from you. My Instagram handle is in the show notes below. And as always, my invitation for you is to join me in the Becoming Secure membership, where I have all of these teachings, as I said, about masculine and feminine, about doing the body work, healing through the body, inner child work, emotional connection to yourself, your needs, your self-trust, so that we get to cultivate more of that confidence, inner peace, openness, receptivity, and love. With that, I am sending you so much love, and I will talk to you soon.